Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta. I am back from Denver. Anthony is home a week from his trip overseas to see his son get married. That'll be exciting. Anthony, I didn't mean to say it so flippantly, by the way.
No, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat.
I am. Hey, now I could have gone. Who knew the Wild would be out the way that they did?
Well, there's still space available.
Yeah. Anthony, sometimes it's not about, how you lose or who you lose to. It's the way you go about it. And last night, as worst of the playoff losses I've ever covered in my career. I mean, they're up 3-0. They're the only team in NHL history to be up 3-0 and not get 10 shots the rest of the game. 7 the rest of the game, out-chanced, expected goals, out everything. And then the way they lost, Anthony, because it really felt like second period, obviously, you just felt like they had to get the fourth goal. They never did, but they still kept that thing to 3-1. And then the third period, I felt they actually made the adjustments. They defended really well. It wasn't like Colorado was attacking them the way they were in the second period. And then and then just careless plays at the end of the game. It starts with the Ryan Hartman icing. He's 2 strides from the red line, doesn't get it over, then loses the draw. For the 50,000th time in the series, the Wild can't tie up a player in front. We all knew coming into the series that Colorado is the best team in the league at tipping pucks, and they get their second tip puck there. But then, with the extra attacker there, Middleton gets the puck. He throws it off the glass. It hits Kadri in the face. Foligno gets the puck. He tries to do something between his legs, puts it right on Landeskog's tape. And next thing you know, everything is haywire. And Jake Middleton's caught in between, and Nathan MacKinnon ties the game on a perfect shot. And you just knew a goal that late, Anthony, it was going to be hard for them to recover. And they looked jittery the first 4 minutes of that overtime.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I think you just summarized the night, the season, the whole thing in your little soliloquy at the top. But I think, so a few things come to mind. One is that yes, this is an unbelievably frustrating way to see a season end when you had a 3-goal lead and played the first period about as it laid out about as perfectly as you could possibly hope it would. You get a 3-goal lead on the road. Actually, could have been 4. A goal gets overturned by the hand pass by McCarron, but it couldn't have gone better. And second period, I thought they were on the ropes the whole period. And to be honest, when they got to the second intermission, still up 3-1, I thought, all right, now they're going to be okay. They survived that. Yep. They could have been down 5-3 after the second period, the way they played. And then I thought in the third, they came out and defended really well. I mean, I know the attempts were one-sided for Colorado, but Colorado had 6 shots until they pulled the goaltender. And I mean, that you hold that team to 6 shots, that's defending pretty well. And MacKinnon on the last play makes a shot that's just one of the true superstars in this league making a terrific shot. Now, the point you made about the plays that led up to that, where the Wild had chances to make plays, I suppose there's a part of you that is, when you've been defending for the better part of 40 minutes, at some point somebody's going to break down, and the Wild just broke down at the worst possible time in those final 3 minutes. But I think you made a comment early that it's not who you lose to, and to me, I think it's just kind of the opposite. I've always looked at the playoffs as it isn't necessarily when you lose, it's who you lose to. And the Wild lost to the best team in the NHL, and they lost to the team that was better than them in this series. When the Wild were healthy and they were at their best, they were good enough to play with Colorado. Anything less than their best, they weren't. And neither is anybody else in the NHL. The Wild might have been, if they have all their guys in the lineup, they might have been as close to Colorado as anybody. And it's not to say that this is a clinch now that Colorado is going to win the whole thing, because there's some good teams still out there that are going to give them battles. But when they elevate their game, we saw it, I thought, in periods 1-2 of game 4. We saw it in periods 2-3 in the overtime of game 5. When Colorado starts to play at that level, it's hard for anybody to match them. They've got an unbelievably deep team, unbelievably skilled team. And I think you just have to give them some credit. When Nathan MacKinnon took over stretches of games 4 and 5, where he just looked like he was unstoppable. How about that? You remember that play where he attacked the zone and Jared Spurgeon got spun all the way around? And I mean, nobody does that to Spurgeon. But MacKinnon, when he's going, is that kind of player. And the shot he made to tie the game, I mean, he had a window about the size of a Solo cup, and he put it in there. I mean, yes, they could have done some things to get the puck out of the zone before that. Maybe Middleton could be more aggressive going to face him, but he's the best scorer in the league this year, and he showed it on that play.
Yeah, he's the best player in the league. I think
I agree.
We know that.
He's,
I mean,
as I've said for years, if I'm starting a team, he's the guy I want. There might be other guys who are viewed as the more skilled players, but he's the guy I want. And those were the kind of stretches where he showed it, where he gets going and he's like a tank. There's just nobody that can stop him. And he had stretches of that in this series. The Wild defended him well at times, but he had stretches where he was unstoppable.
Yeah. And it's I'm not saying it doesn't matter who you lose to, but I'm just saying when you have a 3-0 lead
absolutely.
and you have, I mean, I think the Wild played scared down the stretch, and it really concerns me again that it's their core guys that can't make the detailed plays down the stretch. And that's got to piss Bill Guerin off, because he's invested into this core, and when they needed them, they all screwed up at the end. And we're talking like, 3 of their best defensive players. One thing that I got to say, Anthony, and you know how much I love Jake Middleton, but obviously, he had a real tough postseason, a real tough playoff. He had the icing last year that lost them the series in Game 6 against Vegas. There just came a point where, like, I get it, that Jonas Brodin's out. You can't just scratch him, okay? But you had to limit his ice time. Like, I thought Hunt and Petrie were good last night. And you look at the end of the night, and Damon Hunt's played 10 minutes. You just traded for the second best defenseman in the NHL. You can't tell me with your season on the line with 123 left or whatever it is that for once Quinn Hughes can't play a 5-on-6. Jake could not have shown more in this series that he was being overmatched on the ice for 13 goals, on the ice for 3 goals yesterday, including the tying and the winning goal. The winning goal, he chases Necas around the net, which you're not supposed to do. He loses 6 feet on him by chasing him around the net, and then he sets up Kulak on the easy play because Middleton's gone. I mean, there just needed to be, there needed to be trust in Damon Hunt in this series when you know that Middleton is playing this way.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot more than a couple shifts to go into, but as you and I have talked a lot over the course of the season, I think when Minnesota became a legit contender was when they added Quinn Hughes, and a part of it was because it put Jake Middleton on your third defensive pair. It allowed Brodin and Spurgeon to be your second set, and I think when Middleton's in that role, he's a valuable player. But I think he got exposed in this series. He got exposed at times in the Dallas series and I know during the course of the year, he was actually better the more he played. It seemed like the eye test would tell you, like when he played limited minutes on the third pair, he wasn't as effective. And I don't know if part of that was mental. Part of it was that, he was disappointed in a lesser role. I don't know. I never really talked to him about it, but yeah, I thought Damon Hunt and Spurgeon played well together when they were paired together earlier in the series. I was a little surprised that Hines went away from that. I think maybe it was because bringing Petrie into the lineup, he was worried about a Petrie-Middleton third set, it would be my guess. I wasn't there, so I didn't get a chance to talk to John on the game day morning. But I think I think to the point that you're making there about the way things got away from the Wild, I just kept thinking about it down the stretches. With 3 minutes left in the game, you probably would have seen 2 minutes of Eriksson Ek and Jonas Brodin on the ice in those spots. And that's 2 out of your 5 players against, is Ryan Hartman even on the ice to where you talked about his icing play? Probably not. If the lineup is fully intact, we probably see Eriksson Ek with Boldy and Kaprizov for those final couple of minutes trying to protect the lead. You probably see Brodin with Faber on the back end, and you just have to. And injuries are a part of the game. I'm not trying to. This isn't a. And I know I'll hear from it on the Wild fans. Oh, LaPanta making excuses. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that that if you look at the way this roster was built, it was built to have those two guys on the ice in those spots. 40% of your 5-on-6 personnel was not in the lineup last night, and they got exposed without him.
Yep, no doubt.
Hi, this is Anthony LaPanta. I recently made my first visit ever to a stretch lab. I stopped at the location out in Maple Grove and had a great stretch practitioner named Tom who was terrific. I can't wait to get back. As you try to fight the aging process, which I'm right there with you, trying to battle it, flexibility is one of the big keys. I felt great after my first stretch, and I'm planning to go back weekly. There are 10 locations all across the Twin Cities. I highly recommend checking out Stretch Lab.
You've heard me for years talk about my Connecticut water treatment system in my house. Well, many homeowners don't realize how much hard or poor quality water affects your daily life. Issues include cloudy water, bad taste, buildup on fixtures, dry skin, appliance wear, everything. Well, I have your solution, and it's Aquarius Home Services. They are your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Connecticut systems provide worry-free water throughout your entire home. Systems right now start at $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. It's $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Their technicians will come to your home and provide a free in-home water quality testing analysis. Aquarius handles everything from your testing to your installation. One call and your problem is solved. You can enjoy spotless dishes, softer clothes, smoother, softer skin and hair, worry-free drinking water right from your faucet. That means no more plastic water bottles, no more water cans, everything. You'll be surprised also how little salt it uses. Visit right now or book your services at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com, earning the right to be recommended. That's Aquarius Home Services. And don't forget to tell them that Russo sent you.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use clip notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
And look, I mean, you know, I get, we've talked about this to the, you know, to the nth degree here, but I mean, you know, at the trade deadline, first of all, other than Nazem Kadri, coincidentally, there were no real big centers to go after. You know, Ryan O'Reilly wasn't traded. Vincent Trocheck wasn't traded. Robert Thomas wasn't traded. So, and the Wild took a calculated risk because they did not want to give up significant assets that it would have needed to probably get Vincent Trocheck so they could try to make a big swing this summer. But by doing that, they left themselves an Eriksson Ek injury away from a problem, and we saw it last night. I mean, Michael McCarron should not be your second line center in a must-win game, you know, and that's no slight on him. Like, guy won 15 of 21 faceoffs. You know, he was a huge part of that first goal that Johansson scored. You know, I thought he played well. He had the one goal, as you mentioned, called back. You know, in fact, I would have probably put him as the net front guy on the power play the way that he was playing last night. And they're only one power play.
I mean, he was a great addition for this team. There's no question. And so he's going to make some money this summer in free agency. And I think probably more than what the Wild would be able to or willing to spend to keep him. But he's not a top six center right now. He just isn't. And he was forced to play in that spot because of what else was here. Yes, the Eriksson Ek injury was a part of it, and the fact that they traded away a center in the Hughes trade to make sure that they got Quinn Hughes. And, you know, so I mean, there were some. They did. It was a calculated risk to not go out and overspend. At the time that deadline passed, you and I were both in agreement that the right decision was made to not overspend. But we also knew that looming ahead were Dallas and Colorado, two of the most skilled teams, two of the deepest teams down the middle in the NHL. They maybe caught a break in that Dallas was missing one of their top centers in that series. But Colorado they're as deep down the middle as anybody in the NHL. And that was one of the areas where they had an advantage over the Wild. And they were able to expose that in this series.
You and I will have a show before you leave for Greece, to talk about what's ahead this summer. We promise that early next week. But one thing I did want to just bring up to you on this topic, Anthony, is I'm convinced the Wild are going to go out and try to make a huge trade this summer, but I'm not convinced it would only be for like an Austin Matthews. Like if they could use these assets to get a Brady Tkachuk, I think they do it. Brady does take draws, but he's a play-driving left wing. And my question to you, Anthony, is does this, the Wild seem to believe in today's day and age that if you have play-driving wingers, that it overcomes the need for a top center. And their rationale for that is Boldy and Kaprizov. Well, Boldy and Kaprizov were largely negated in this series, with the exception of Game 3 for Kaprizov. Do you think this should change their mind, that going after a Brady should not be the priority this offseason, that going to get that center finally, because Dallas and Colorado are always going to be there, that this should be the series that tells them they need a center?
Well, maybe, because I think there's a few things in play here. One is, let's remember that the Wild played without their best center this whole series. So that is a factor. There's no question about it. They played without their best center the whole series. So they were thin at center to begin with, and then you took away the best you had and went up against a team that was as deep down the middle as anybody. That's a tough combination. I think we saw over the course of the season that you can drive offense with wings rather than centers. And even in this series, they scored 18 goals in 5 games. It isn't like they were lacking for offense. What they were lacking was the ability to shut down Colorado at key times in the series. And they were playing without their best shutdown center and maybe their best shutdown defenseman, for sure one of their top 2 shutdown defensemen. So I think there's a little care to be taken, like to not overreact to just what happened in this specific series, because you did lose to the best team in the NHL without 2 players that would have been integral parts of trying to beat them. But I think what the Wild need, and this series became evident, is they need a top 6 forward, whether that's a wing or a forward, because the truth is you're probably playing, Marcus Johansson, he was such a valuable player for this team. In an ideal world, he's in your bottom 6, not your top 6. You've got, in this series, you had either Danila Yurov, Michael McCarron playing in your top 6, one or the other. Even Ryan Hartman, for that matter, probably in an ideal world, all 3 of those guys are bottom 6 centers. Matt Zuccarello, at this point in his career, I think he's a valuable first power play unit guy. He showed he could still play top 6, but he's probably a fringe top 6 winger on a Stanley Cup contender. So you're really talking about a team that's probably a couple top 6 type guys short right now. And I think it's more important to add that rather than a specific position, because part of the reason why it was always in past years a problem at the center spot was because the Wild got just crushed on the faceoff dot. And now you had guys like Boldy and Kaprizov starting every shift without the puck and chasing. But that wasn't the case in this Colorado series. Their centers were fine in terms of face-off win percentage, but it was just the driving of the lines became a little more difficult from the wings, I think, against a team that was as deep down the middle. So I just think
the irony of Colorado, Anthony, is that for the last several years that the Wild have stunk in the faceoff circle, Colorado's been right there with them.
Right.
And that was even, as you pointed out, getting Kadri, one of the best faceoff guys in the league, and
Yeah, and Brock Nelson, who's a good faceoff man. And so they're just different in that, those guys are a part of what shuts down the guys like Boldy and Kaprizov. Nelson's a really responsible player. Kadri's a pain in the butt. Nicholas Wa's a solid bottom 6 centerman, and in this case, sometimes he wasn't even playing in the middle. Same with Kadri. Yep. So I think it's more important that the Wild get an impact top 6 player than specifically a center. I think if you start to look ahead and you say, okay, Eriksson Ek is going to be back. Yes, the guy's been banged up in the playoffs a few times, but if you look over his career, most years he's playing 75, 78 games. It isn't like he's playing 44 games a season. So You count on him to be there. Danila Yurov took some strides this year. I think he's on his way to being a really good player, and maybe he's good enough to be a middle six player instead of a bottom six player. We'll find out in the next couple of years. He's kind of ahead of where Eriksson Ek was at this point in his career, which is interesting to note because remember, at this point in Eriksson Ek's career, there was a lot of talk like, is this guy ever going to score? Is he ever going to? Well, Yurov scored more than him. He was brutal on the faceoff dot. That's got to get better, but I think it will. And so, maybe the right fit out there is a top end winger like a couple of the guys you mentioned. We'll have a lot of time to talk about who might be there, but I think bottom line is they've got to spend their assets on a top 6 impact player.
Yeah.
Whether that be money in free agency or a trade. It seems like maybe a trade is more likely, but one way or the other, that's the player that they're lacking right now.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's Alex Tuck, there's really nobody available in free agency. I mean, this is a god-awful class, and I think it's going to continue to be god-awful forever now that cap is going up and up and up, and everybody's going to have money to spend.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at some of the deals, like even Charlie Coyle's deal that he just signed, and I love Charlie Coyle. I think he would have been a great. I don't know if the Wild talked to him or about him at the trade deadline because he was one of the guys that I looked at and thought this would be a perfect fit for Minnesota if you're not going to break the bank to try to go get that Robert Thomas or Vincent Trocheck type guy because you think they're overpriced. And I don't know what the price was for Coyle based on what Columbus gave him.
I don't think there was a price. I think they called on Columbus and was told he was not available. And remember, Columbus at that point was on fire. And, trying to make the playoffs.
And the fact that they just gave him 6 years tells you that if he was available, that the asking price might have been just as high as some of the other guys. But the point I was going to make is that they just committed to him until I think he's going to be 40 at the end of that deal. And $6 million plus for a 40-year-old. I mean, that's what it's going to take to get guys because everybody's looking at the cap's going up. $6 million this year. I don't know what the exact math would be, but by the end of that, the equivalent is that $6 million is probably $4.5 million when you start to figure the inflation of the cap. So I think teams are just going to be more and more likely to keep their own, re-sign their own, and it's going to have to be a trade rather than a free agent pickup for Minnesota.
Without a doubt. And the Wild, as we've talked a lot about, don't have a ton of assets anymore. So it's going to be really difficult because there's going to be a lot of teams trying to make big trades this offseason as well. And we'll get more into that after, hopefully by Monday, we have wrap-up day for the Wild and talk to a bunch of players and Bill Guerin and John Hines about the future, and we'll have a little intel that we could share on that next podcast. Anthony, I want to talk to you about Hines, and I want to talk to you about Kirill. But the one thing I will say that shocked me in this series is just how good guys like Ross Colton, Jack Drury, Parker Kelly were throughout. I mean, consistently good. 17 goal scorers, I believe, that Colorado has with Kulak now. But man, those three were just thorns in the Wild side, and not only just scored huge goals. I mean, again, last night, Kelly and Drury, but physical and played the Wild great defensively. You look at now back at that Rantanen trade, my God, did Chris McFarland do good getting Natchez and Drury,
Yeah, and keep in mind that when he made that trade, there were a lot of people saying that Colorado gave up too soon, gave up on Rantanen too soon. Rantanen came out afterward and was, making statements kind of like that. I never said I wasn't going to stay or what, but what a haul they got in that deal. And Natchez showed during the course of the regular season how dangerous he can be. I didn't think he was on top of his game in this series. I thought he was a little perimeter and a little east-west for where there were some times I looked at it and thought, well, I could see maybe why Carolina decided that they were ready to move on from him. But at the same time, he is an electric offensive player.
Last night, man, he was great.
Yeah, and drove with speed. And yeah, I mean, I think Colorado's that's why I was saying earlier, I think they are the deepest team in the National Hockey League, and that's a big part of the reason why they are the best team in the league. And they're going to be a handful for anybody. I mean, I actually happen to think Vegas is going to give them a battle in the next round if they get any goaltending whatsoever. I've liked Vegas all year and thought they were kind of a sleeping giant, so to speak, where they were underachieving for much of the year due to their goaltending problems. But I think it's going to take a Herculean effort by somebody to beat that team.
It's going to times. Yeah.
Right. It's going to have to be a Carter Hart standing absolutely on his head and stealing a couple. That team's not going to get outplayed 4 times in a series. Something spectacular is going to happen to beat them.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, you can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch.
Hi, this is Anthony LaPanta, and lately I've been hearing from a lot of friends about a product called Lucy. Lucy makes premium tobacco-free nicotine pouches in a range of flavors and strengths so you can find something that fits what you like. One thing that really sets Lucy apart is the flavor experience, especially with Lucy Breakers. They feature a flavor capsule inside the pouch that you crack whenever you want an extra burst of flavor. It's a different kind of experience, and that on-demand flavor is what makes Lucy stand out. You can get 20% off your first order today at lucy.co/worstseats with promo code WORSTSEATS. And if you'd rather pick some up today, use their store locator to find Lucy near you. And now the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
2 pods ago at our a live show at Tuttle's, Anthony, we talked about Kirill Kaprizov, and I said, look, like it or not, I mean, when you hold the Wild hostage the way that you have to get every single penny that you can from this organization, to preempt Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Kyle Connor, Adrian Kempe, all making you look bad by then really playing ball with their teams and signing, compromised contracts to allow the team to do other things, that the pressure is going to be on. You can't complain about Ryan Hartman being your number 1 center if you try to take the type of money that won't even allow you to maybe re-sign a Michael McCarron. So that being said alone, he in game 4, and I get the analytics look great for him yesterday. Like, I know, I have a feeling you're going to come back at me with that. But game 4, he is 1 shot on goal, totally MIA after being absolutely awesome in game 3. And last night, in an elimination game, the most important game of the season, Nathan MacKinnon takes over the game, gets 17 shot attempts, 9 shots on goal. And at the end of the night, right here on this game sheet, Kirill Kaprizov, 4 attempts, 0 shots on net. I'm sorry, it's not acceptable. It's not. I get he defended great. He had a couple gutsy block shots there in the second period, one that sent his blade into freaking, Eagle, Colorado. But to end the game with 0 shots, that is concerning as that contract now kicks in. And in 6 weeks, he's going to get an $18.1 million check from Craig Leopold, the first of like 8 in a row. I mean, it's
yeah. I mean,
sorry,
look,
it's not. And I cannot tell you how. I promise you, the organization was not satisfied with yesterday.
I thought Kaprizov I thought he played well yesterday. I thought he played hard. I thought he was, but Minnesota generated almost nothing as a team all night last night. And, he's certainly a part of that. But, I thought in the first period, I thought he was good. I thought he defended really well last night. And his compete level was high last night from the beginning. And it was, I think that
I get it, but everybody competed last night.
No, I know that. But I'm saying
his job is to score, and
right.
You can't score if you get 0 shots.
Well, I understand that, but I think it was partial. It's more of a team thing than a Kaprizov thing. That's the way I looked at it, because when you look at what Kaprizov did in this playoff run, and in fact, I don't remember where I saw it posted, but it was after game 3. There was something I saw. Somebody sent it to me, a social media post. It was like a daily playoff MVP. Like, here, if the playoffs ended today, here would be the rankings. And after Game 3 of this series, Kirill Kaprizov was number 1 on this list. Now, I didn't agree with that necessarily, but it's like he's at that time was leading the playoffs in scoring. He had done about as much as you could ask for a guy to do. Now, this is where you needed a guy like him to, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Can you drive the offense from the wing like you can from the middle? Nathan MacKinnon last night took over the game. Kirill Kaprizov did not. He took over short segments of the first period of the game, but then when the team needed something, and I keep going back to, there were key points in the Dallas series where John Hines went to his big 3 together: Eriksson Ek, Brodin, Kaprizov. He stayed away from putting Brodin and Kaprizov together for any length of time in this series. And part of it, I'm sure, was because Eriksson Ek wasn't the guy to be with him in the middle. But I felt like there were some points where this is where you almost have to give that a shot. There were a couple shifts where we saw Brodin with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, but I thought there'd be if we're going to go down, let's go down with the best 2 players we have up front on the ice together and play the hell out of them down the stretch. What do you have to lose, and see what happens? And I was a little bit surprised the Wild didn't go to that. Maybe with those 2 on the ice together, you'd have been able to even have a shift or 2 where you tilted the ice the other way, because it just felt like the whole team was on the ropes. And it's hard for Kaprizov to drive offense when you're in your own zone for just about the entirety of every shift. And there were a lot bigger problems for this team than Kirill Kaprizov's lack of offensive production. I didn't look at the final stat sheet. How many guys for the Wild had more than 4 shot attempts? There couldn't have been very many.
Yeah.
They only had 22 in the last 2 periods. So
Matt Boldy, 10, had 5 on net, and that would be it.
Yeah. So that's as much offense as the Wild had. It was
Faber had 4 attempts too.
Yeah, I mean, they just, when they're in your own zone the whole night, and Kaprizov's a part of the fault of that, like the fact that they were in your zone. But when you spend 40 minutes defending, or 40 plus the overtime, it's hard to generate any kind of shot attempts. And that's why I thought when you looked at Kaprizov's game, he defended really well.
My only thing is, Anthony, and look, I get it. MacKinnon's a different breed than anybody, but
Kaprizov's supposed to be in that same class. I mean, that's, if you're going to talk about how
exactly,
okay, the Avs have MacKinnon and Makar, well, the Wild have Kaprizov and Hughes. I mean, then you have to be willing to be compared to that player, but we also just have to understand that the supporting cast for those players are not the same. MacKinnon wasn't spending 40 minutes in his own zone last night because of his supporting cast. He's a part of it, but his supporting cast was also a part of that, where Kaprizov's supporting cast got outplayed last night by a wide margin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. And you just wish he could, you just wish that he could take over a game more often than he can, but again, I know, like, we're doing it, watching Nathan MacKinnon do it. Nathan MacKinnon's 1 of 1,
right?
I'm just amazed at how that guy could I know you hate the literally when it's not literally.
Yeah.
But he literally takes his team and puts it on his back. Like, it's crazy last night.
He figuratively takes his team and puts it on his back.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
But if there was ever a time that it literally could be used, we're
close to literally, yeah. Well, but again, now let's look at this. I want to make it clear, this is not to make an excuse for Kirill Kaprizov having 4 shot attempts. But Nathan MacKinnon is playing with Marty Necas on one wing and Gabriel Landeskog on the other. That's a significant difference from Matt Zuccarello and Ryan Hartman. It just is. It's throw Kaprizov on the wing with Nathan MacKinnon in the middle, and you'd see a guy dominate games, dominate shifts. I mean, there is a difference. And it's kind of like Matt Boldy, where we talked about his game, as good a player as he is, when he plays with Eriksson Ek, he plays a better game. When he plays with Johansson driving with speed, he plays a better game. Last night, I thought he stepped up in a huge way. He had not been great in Game 4. But in Game 5, I thought he was right from the drop of the puck. He was, and maybe it was because McCarron kind of forced that line to play a simpler straight line game. I'd have to go back and really watch those shifts carefully myself. But you're right about MacKinnon, and that's why I've always said, and I've said it from the time we started doing this show, Connor McDavid might be the most talented player in the world, but if I'm starting a team, I'm starting around Nathan MacKinnon. That's the way he goes 0 to 60 in one step. It's just amazing to me, and it's done like a tank rather than a jitterbug. I mean, he's a one of a kind in this league right now, and there's a reason why the Avs are riding him.
No, you're 100%. It's funny, John Hines yesterday, Anthony, like in the press box and during the second intermission, Joe Smith and I are talking about what we're going to write. We're commiserating with Mark Lazarus, our third writer there with The Athletic. And I'm like, I think I'm going to write a column about how just like really everything that he did in this game worked. He puts Michael McCarron on the second line that played well. Damon Hunt, it was like all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it just, all right, that's not going to write. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then they dropped that game the way they did. I mean, look, John Hines is safe. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But is this something that he's going to have to learn from too, or is the built-in excuse? Is the built-in excuse Eriksson Ek and Brodin?
Well, I think that's excuse is the wrong word but it's certainly a reason. It was certainly a factor. It doesn't mean that meant you went into the series and it was just okay to lose. It wasn't. They expected to win this series with or without those guys, thought they could win the series. When they had their full team, I think back to those 2 games in Denver right out of the Olympic break where Minnesota beat them the first time and then lost in a shootout the second time when the Wild were at full strength. That's indicative of what they were capable of against this Colorado club with a full complement. But every team's got injuries. Everybody's got guys banged up. Cale Makar was clearly banged up in this series and wasn't at 100%. Missed some stretches. Now, he didn't miss 5 games like Eriksson Ek and Brodin did. But we've seen so many times Eriksson Ek might be the most irreplaceable player in this lineup. And I think we saw that again in this series. But I go back to the point you're making about as you're sitting there watching the game, and that's what your mind is going, where this is the story of the game. That's the life of an NHL coach. He makes the moves, he makes the lineup, he makes the game plan adjustments, and for 40 minutes it looks like it's going to work. Well, so you as a educated fan, you're sitting and saying the story of this game is that his game plan worked, his strategy worked, his lineup worked. Well, then when it doesn't in the third period, Hines should be fired. I can't tell you the number of people that replied to a tweet I sent at the end of the game that this one's going to sting, that fire Hines, fire Hines, fire Hines, and a fair number that were like, Guerin should go too. Look at how much he gave up to get Quinn Hughes. Well, nobody was saying that when this series started, but now the second guessing comes out. And so where everybody looked before the game at, yep, I think Hines is doing what I would do. Well, then when it doesn't work, it's fire Hines. It's not fire me. It's not you know what I mean? It's the coach is the only guy whose decisions get evaluated after the game, not before. You and I look at the lineup sometimes and say, yeah, that's what I would have done tonight with this guy out or that guy not playing well. I would have tried this same thing. Well, then when it doesn't work, it's Hines is an idiot. Hines should be fired. When it's like, all right, well, what would you have done before the game? Tell me before the game what you would do for your lineup tonight. Tell me who with Eriksson Ek out would have been in your top 6 as a center, rather than saying, why the hell would Hines put McCarron in the top 6? Well, that's easy to say when the game is over.
Yeah, there's no other options. But there was no other options. I mean,
there weren't.
Like, in fact, I essentially predicted it on the radio that day because I'm like, there's no way they can go back with Euro there, and McCarron's their only other option. The only thing I didn't like yesterday was
though, is like as I was...
Yeah.
As I was watching the game, you look at the 2 plays, and yes, the ice was tilted the Avs' way in the third period in the overtime. Mm-hmm. But on the first shift of the overtime, McCarron has the game, like Boldy and McCarron in 2-on-1. And now Boldy's pass isn't great, but that to me was somewhat, that was the difference between these 2 clubs.
Yeah.
We had Michael McCarron. Like if you all of a sudden, let's say Brock Nelson is your second line center and he and Boldy are in on that 2-on-1. Does he finish? And this isn't to say that it's because McCarron fanned on this shot but it's an empty net.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that a guy who probably in an ideal world is in your bottom six is the guy who has the game and the season on his stick right there with a chance to win it. And there's just a difference. And
I also did
the
not
Wild had
love,
a second chance in that overtime with Kaprizov and Brodin on the ice.
That's what I was going to say. I didn't love that play because to me, like, I get that Scott Wedgwood is challenging him, but you've just spent an entire 40 minutes not challenging this guy. Drive the net, man. Like, why are you trying to hit a 40-foot pass, like, to the right through traffic? And it was not a good pass.
And especially on a night where you've had such a hard time getting any shots.
Yeah.
That to me,
that's why to me, I made such a big deal of it after the game with Kirill, and he got pissed with me big time. But I'm like, how do you have 0 shots in an elimination game was essentially my question. The only other thing, just lastly, and we'll wrap up, Anthony, although I do have one funny thing to tell you. But the only thing I didn't love about the coaching last night is I thought like Hunt and Petrie were unbelievable in the first period, and then I look at their final ice time, and it's 9 each, and I just don't get it. I will say this. I mean, talk about 2014 and a flashback. Like it is funny. I even said to a couple people during this whole road trip, I'm like, God, I missed Anthony being on this road trip. Just somebody to shoot the breeze with, and blah, 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 blah. Last night, if you came up to me in that freaking overtime, I would have thrown you out of the press box.
Did you see Chad Graff? He's posted that on Twitter. He said, I'm having flashbacks. Yeah, it was funny. I was sitting watching the game, and all of a sudden, I was thinking it in my mind that right now I've got this Not Now LaPanta in my mind, and all of a sudden I grabbed my phone, and I was going to send you a text with it, and I got an alert. Chad Graff tagged you in a tweet, and I look, and he said, I'm having flashbacks to Not Now LaPanta, and I said I was having the same thing. Yeah, it was this sucked. I hated this series.
I can't imagine that you were.
Yeah, I mean, just not being with the team, and I was there for the home games, but it wasn't the same not being with the team in Denver. Yeah. For this, and I don't know where or what's going to happen in the future if we'll do coverage like we used to do pre and post game shows, at least in the second round, and I hope we do, because this was painful as just to be a Wild fan, which I really was at the end here, and to watch this series and be as disconnected as I was from the team during those 3 games that were played in Denver during the series.
It really did, because, obviously Altitude TV is off the air too, but they're doing pre and post, and it just sucks that you guys didn't have a landing spot because FanDuel went dark, and I'm sure this came out of, like, it just, not to rip on the Wild, but it is just a shame that they couldn't do something with you guys, whether it's putting you on YouTube or on wild.com or something. And I'm sure they're dealing with so many things that it just probably got, and there's a cost to it and all that stuff.
There's a cost to it, and without really a platform to air. Like, if FanDuel was going to be here again next fall, I'm sure we would have continued to do what we used to always do. And I'm thinking that there's a pretty good likelihood we'll do something like that in the future, because I think this isn't going to be the last time with this core of players for the Wild that we're talking about a team past the first round of the playoffs. At least all of us hope that. And but it was hard not to be as connected to this team during this second round series. There's no question.
Well, Anthony, as I said, we'll do one more podcast before you take off for Europe. And hopefully by then we'll do the podcast most likely Monday, because you leave Tuesday. And hopefully by then we have wrap up day, but it is isn't today Friday, or is today Thursday? So today's Thursday. And we haven't heard yet from the Wild. I'm sure they're shell shocked on when this, hopefully it's like, Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. Usually the way the Wild do it is that we'll get the players on one day and then Hines and Guerin together the next day. And that's usually the way it works. And hopefully that's the way it works, because I am supposed to leave Tuesday for the Western Conference Final, but obviously I'll put the Wild to bed first. And if we have to delay me leaving, we'll delay me leaving. Thanks for all our incredible sponsors, Anthony. Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems. Onyx Maps, Great Clips, Stretch Labs, and Lucy Nicotine Pouches. Thanks, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the